You were never the daughter. We just couldn't return the mistake. So we dressed it up in duty and called it family. That was the last thing they said to me before I dragged the entire family to court. If you've ever been treated like a burden in your own bloodline, stay with me. This story is yours too. The pencil in Claire's hand trembled slightly as it scratched across vellum, forming the delicate outline of a mobile hanging above a crib. Tiny moons, stars, clouds. She paused when the tip snapped. The broken lead left a jagged mark across the pale blue wall she had sketched. It wasn't meant for her baby. Not anymore. A draft moved through the tall windows of her old town office, rustling the edges of floor plans and material samples like whispers she couldn't quite understand. Afternoon light spilled onto her drafting table, golden and soft, but it couldn't thaw the chill that had lodged in her since July. Her phone buzzed. The vibration rattled against her ceramic mug, now cold. Mom, don't forget Alyssa's shower. Next Saturday. You're still doing the decorations, right? No greeting. No question mark. Just expectation, packaged in punctuationless authority. Claire exhaled, pressing the side of her pencil to shade in the bottom of the crib. Her sketchpad caught a smudge where her palm had dragged across earlier. Like fingerprints over glass, faint but undeniable. Just like everything in her life now. Touched. Tainted. She typed back, "Yes, I'll take care of it." Then she stared at the message for a second longer before sending it. Ethan appeared in the doorway, a takeout coffee in one hand, his tie loosened. "Still working?" Claire nodded, not looking up. "I thought you finished the McAllister project yesterday." "I'm doing a nursery mock-up for a private client." Ethan walked in and placed the coffee next to her elbow. "For your niece or nephew?" Claire finally met his eyes. "For my mother." He leaned against the edge of the desk. "You don't have to do this. You know that, right? If I say no, she'll spin it as me being unstable, or selfish, or both. She's not the one who lost something." Claire blinked once, slowly. "They all act like I lost nothing." Later that evening, she folded a soft cardigan into her overnight bag, then another. Beige, gray, nothing too warm, nothing too bright. Ethan lingered by the dresser. "We could just not go." Claire zipped the bag. "If I stay home, it gives them more to say. You don't owe them anything. I owe me some peace. And peace for now looks like nodding and decorating and pretending nothing ever happened." The Whitmore estate loomed like a proud memory no one dared correct. 3 stories of white colonial brick framed by 2 symmetrical oaks, both older than Claire. The driveway crunched beneath the tires of Ethan's car as they pulled in. Claire stared ahead, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The front door opened before they could knock. Alyssa stood with her arms wide and a glow that seemed painted on. "Claire, Ethan." Her voice rose like a game show host's, all flair and teeth. Her belly barely showed, but she pressed one manicured hand to it dramatically as she posed for an invisible camera. Claire stepped into the foyer, its chandelier gleaming like a well-fed secret. Inside the sunroom, voices chirped, laughter too high-pitched. Every eye flicked toward Alyssa and then away from Claire. The room was wrapped in soft pastels, vases of baby's breath, trays of lemon tarts. Claire's handiwork, hers but unacknowledged. Marjorie approached, wearing pearls and a smile 2 shades too tight. "Darling," she said, touching Claire's wrist briefly. "You look thin." Claire didn't reply. "You really should eat more. It's important, especially after everything." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "We don't want a repeat of last time." Claire's mouth stayed shut. Marjorie blinked as if waiting for a thank you. "Anyway, Alyssa loved the decorations. You've outdone yourself." Gregory's voice rang from across the room, bourbon in hand. "To the next Whitmore generation." Claire, standing a full 5 feet from him, wasn't included in the gesture. He clinked glasses with Alyssa's husband instead. Ethan handed Claire a glass of sparkling water. "How much longer do we have to pretend you're okay?" he murmured. She sipped slowly. as long as it takes to leave without a scene. Dinner passed in the quiet mortification. Stories of Alyssa's food cravings, baby name debates, and designer diaper bags bloomed around the table like vines, tangling everything else. Claire nodded where expected, smiled when prompted. Under the table, Ethan's hand slid over hers. She squeezed once, briefly. Between courses, Marjorie leaned over. Her breath smelled of lemon and control. Don't be bitter. Be happy for your sister. Claire looked at her, silent. In that moment, she imagined stripping the wallpaper off this house, layer by layer, generation by generation, until it was nothing but blank drywall and hollow beams. By the time dessert was served, Claire was already gathering her coat. Outside, the air had turned cool. Night crept up the trees that framed the estate. Wait, Alyssa called, gliding toward them with that smile again. Too broad, too polished. She hugged Claire gently, one hand on her shoulder, the other smoothing Claire's hair like a mother petting a child. Thanks again for everything, she said sweetly. Then, leaning in closer, so only Claire could hear, thanks for not ruining my moment. Her smile was perfect. Too perfect, like porcelain waiting to crack. Claire paused, her hand tightening around the box of herbal tea she had just picked up. She turned slowly, catching the familiar voice again before spotting its source among the crowd. Alyssa's laugh. It rang high and clear from the other aisle, melodic in a way that didn't match the sterile lighting and antiseptic smell of Exit Market. The sound felt staged, like everything else about her lately. Claire turned away, heart thudding. She hadn't planned to see her sister today, or anyone from that house. She moved down the aisle, distracted. Organic honey, oat milk, prenatal vitamins she didn't need anymore. Her cart felt too light, her steps too slow. Just as she rounded the corner, she nearly collided with a man walking briskly with 2 bags in hand. Claire? Ryan's voice stopped her cold. She looked up. Alyssa's husband stood stiffly, his expression caught between recognition and guilt. Ryan, she said, regaining her balance. Sorry, I didn't see you. It's okay. He replied quickly, shifting the bags in his arms. Didn't expect to run into anyone I knew. Same. A pause hung between them, longer than it should have been. Claire took a breath, then said, How's Alyssa? Ryan hesitated. Good. Busy, planning things. Claire gave a neutral nod. He glanced away for a second, then back at her. Are you okay? With everything coming up? The question startled her. You mean the baby shower? Yeah. His tone dropped. I know it might be difficult. Claire studied him. You're the first person who's asked me that. He rubbed the back of his neck. Well, it just seems like no one else is really considering. He trailed off, unsure how much he was allowed to say. Claire tilted her head. You okay, Ryan? He looked down. It's probably nothing. Just, Alyssa's been acting a little off. Off how? She's been really into these teas lately. Keeps saying they help her clean out toxins or something. But she wouldn't drink them when I offered to make them for her. His lips pressed thin. Only if she prepares them herself. Claire felt something in her stomach twist. She also locks her phone now, which she never used to. Ryan glanced at her. Late-night texts with your mom, whispering when I come into the room. Claire's voice dropped. Texts about what? I don't know, but it doesn't feel right. There was another pause, heavier than the first. Then he cleared his throat. I should go, just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. She gave a faint nod as he left. Claire stood in the aisle a long time after he was gone, the box of tea still in her hand. Her mind wandered to a memory she'd kept buried, the morning she fainted in her kitchen. The way the mug had slipped from her hand before she even felt dizzy. Alyssa had made the tea that day. It was chamomile. Or maybe something else. That evening, Claire sat across from Janet at a small Italian bistro tucked away near Cambridge. The lights were warm and dim, and the pasta came in steaming bowls that neither of them touched much. Janet swirled her wine, eyeing Claire carefully. "You've got that look again." "What look?" "The one that says you're thinking something dangerous, but you're trying not to say it out loud." Claire sighed. "Do you think it's possible to love someone and still know they're capable of something awful?" Janet didn't flinch. "I think family makes it easier to ignore the signs, especially when you're taught that silence equals loyalty." Claire looked out the window. The sky was deepening and Boston's city lights flickered awake. "She's hiding something," she whispered. "Then find out what." Claire glanced back at her. "Just like that?" Janet took a slow sip of wine. "Just because it's blood doesn't make it safe." Later that night, as Claire slipped off her shoes and reached for her phone on the bedside table, the screen lit up with a text from Ryan. No words, just a screenshot. Alyssa's Instagram story. "Tomorrow we celebrate more than just one life." They called it a celebration, but I smelled blood beneath the rosewater. Claire stepped out of the car and into the cold October wind, the hem of her pale blue dress lifting just slightly as she steadied herself. The Golden Garden rose ahead like a monument to curated elegance, a 19th century mansion turned luxury venue, full of crown moldings and curated lies. She had helped design it 3 years ago. Back then, it had felt like legacy. Now it felt like betrayal wrapped in soft gold light. Ethan placed a hand on her back as they walked toward the entrance. "You still have time to back out." She didn't answer. She just kept walking. Inside, the scent of roses mixed with pastries, and a dozen voices fluttered against the high ceiling like moths seeking a flame. Pastel streamers spiraled down from crystal chandeliers, and round tables were draped in linen the shade of soft blush. Claire's own sketches had dictated this palette once. Colors chosen to soothe, now used to smother. Marjorie appeared like a stage manager before opening night. Her dress was cream silk, her smile brittle. "You're late," she said sweetly. Then she looked around. "But I suppose it gave me time to fix the centerpiece arrangement." Claire let the jab pass. "Everyone's saying how perfect the place looks," Marjorie added louder for nearby ears. "Of course it wasn't easy, but I made it work." Janet, standing near the bar, raised an eyebrow. Claire caught the silent exchange and offered a half smile. She crossed the room quietly, Ethan and Janet trailing nearby, while Alyssa basked in the circle of guests, congratulating her as if she were royalty. Her pregnancy barely showed, but her aura screamed performance. The soft waves in her hair, the hand that cradled her belly like she was carrying a kingdom. Claire handed off the gift bag to a staff member and drifted toward the drinks. Ryan stood by the edge of the buffet, scanning the room like someone preparing for a fire drill. When his eyes met hers, he gave a small, solemn nod. "Thanks for coming," he murmured when she neared him. Claire didn't respond. She just stared at Alyssa. "She's been strange all day," he continued. "Won't let anyone see her notes. Locked herself in the office before this started." Claire blinked. "She's planning something." "I know." A bell chimed gently, and Marjorie clinked her glass. "Time for gifts." Everyone gathered near the gift table, boxes wrapped in gold and ivory piled high like trophies. Claire stood slightly apart, back against one of the ornate support columns. Ethan stayed close. Janet sat nearby, arms folded, watching. One by one, Alyssa unwrapped gifts with exaggerated delight. Candles, bottles, a customized stroller. Everyone clapped politely. Claire sipped her water, her stomach tight. Then Alyssa raised her hand. "Wait. Before the last gift, I want to say something." Someone passed her a microphone. She took it with a dazzling smile. Her eyes glittered, but not with joy. "Thank you all so much for coming today," she began. "This has been a dream, a celebration of life, of what's to come. But today we're also celebrating something else. Something just as important. The room went quiet. Claire's heartbeat slowed to a cold crawl. Alyssa turned toward her, that same flawless smile still painted on her face. Today we celebrate not just birth, but a timely loss. Gasps. Claire stood up. Ethan touched her arm. Claire, Alyssa continued, her tone lilting like it was all part of a skit. My sister has finally found peace after her difficult experience. So let's all raise a glass to closure. Muffled whispers. A wine glass dropped somewhere. Claire's vision blurred, but not from tears. Her hands clenched. She stepped forward. What did you just say? Alyssa tilted her head. It's a joke, Claire. Don't be so sensitive. Claire shook. You're joking about my miscarriage? Everyone's thinking it, Alyssa replied. I just said it out loud. Claire took another step, but Marjorie was suddenly there, grabbing her arm with vice-like fingers. Don't you dare make a scene, she hissed into Claire's ear. You always ruin things. Don't ruin this. Claire tried to pull away, but Marjorie's grip tightened. I said let go, Claire growled, louder this time. You're being dramatic, as always, Marjorie snapped, giving her a hard shove. Claire's heel caught on the edge of the carpet. For a moment, time bent. The mezzanine railing loomed behind her. She stumbled, arms flailed. Someone shouted her name. Ethan? Janet? She couldn't tell. Then the world inverted. The ceiling spun, chandeliers becoming stars. Air rushed past her ears. The sound distorted, like she was falling through syrup. Then, the floor. Marble met spine in a blunt, devastating symphony. The pain was immediate, blinding. Somewhere nearby, someone screamed. Shapes moved. Feet hurried. The chandelier overhead trembled from the vibration. Claire lay still, breath trapped, the taste of iron in her mouth. She could feel the blood, warm and spreading. Above her, the mural she had designed, a soft sky with birds, swam in and out of focus. So this is how I'm erased, she thought. They thought I'd forget. But memory lives in the cracks of every broken rib. Claire surfaced through layers of silence, like rising from the bottom of a deep black lake. Her eyelids fluttered open, and all she saw was a white ceiling, smooth, sterile, humming with fluorescent light. The hum vibrated through her skull like a tuning fork. Pain arrived in patches. Her right arm throbbed, wrapped in something tight and unmoving. Her ribs ached with every shallow breath. Her mouth tasted of metal and cotton. A soft beep echoed beside her. A monitor. A drip. The unmistakable antiseptic scent of a hospital room. She blinked. Slowly, the world came into focus. A chair, a jacket draped over it. A man sleeping upright, chin on his chest. Ethan. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled. But the moment she shifted slightly, he startled awake and stood. Claire, he said, voice cracking. You're awake. She tried to speak, but the effort sliced across her throat. Instead, she nodded. I'll get the doctor. He pressed a kiss to her forehead before rushing out. She was alone again, for just a breath. And then the memories returned. Sharp, fast, brutal. Alyssa's voice, sing-song and venomous. The toast, the fall, the floor. Claire closed her eyes as the ceiling spun again. The betrayal sat heavier than her own weight against the mattress. The door opened. Janet stepped in, followed by a tall man in plain clothes and a woman in a dark navy suit. Claire, Janet said, her voice a mix of steel and affection. We've been waiting. The man gave a respectful nod. Detective Warren, Boston PD. I know this is a lot, but I'd like to speak with you briefly. The woman stepped forward next. I'm Nina Caldwell. I'm a lawyer, here to advise you. Janet asked me to come. Claire looked from one to the other, then finally at Janet. She saw everything, Janet said softly. And she's not letting them get away with it. Neither am I. Claire's voice came rough, like gravel through gauze. How bad? Broken right arm, 2 fractured ribs, mild concussion. Nina replied calmly. But you're here. You're alive. Claire tried to sit up, winced, then lay back. They pushed me. Detective Warren opened a file folder. We have witness accounts. Janet's, Ethan's, Ryan Carter's. But more importantly, we have this. He held up a flash drive. It's an audio clip, recorded by Ryan. He began to suspect something weeks ago. He saved text messages, too. Screenshots, voicemails. Claire swallowed. Her mouth was dry. What does it say? Warren glanced at Nina, who gave a small nod. He pulled out a small recorder and pressed play. Alyssa's voice crackled through. If she loses the baby, we can control the inheritance again. The air left Claire's lungs. Nina stepped in, her voice gentle but clear. They were discussing ways to ensure you were removed from Gregory Whitmore's succession plan. If you had a child first, the estate would have to split. They wanted Alyssa's child to be the only heir. Claire stared at the edge of her blanket. I lost that baby. They may have helped that happen, Janet said, her tone quiet but trembling with rage. Your tea, the pills, the stress they knew they were causing. Claire looked at her. You always stayed quiet. Because I know what it's like, Janet said. Gregory did the same to me 20 years ago. Cut me out of the family trust when I refused to remarry. Said I was unfit to raise a legacy. Claire's jaw clenched. So this runs deep. This isn't just family drama, Claire, Nina said. It's potential criminal conspiracy. If you're willing to press charges, we can pursue a full case. Claire didn't speak. Instead, her gaze drifted across the room, to the window. Outside, the sky hung heavy with early winter rain, tapping softly against the glass. A flicker of motion caught her eye. A nurse passed by with a cart. In one of the cribs was a newborn, bundled tight, sleeping soundly beneath a mobile of stars. Claire stared at the child until her vision blurred. That was supposed to be her. She turned back to the room, back to Nina, to Warren, to Janet, to Ethan now returning quietly, his eyes red. The room waited. Claire's voice was calm when it came, measured. Then let's begin. I want them to pay. In court, last names are just labels. But truth is a weapon. The oak-paneled courtroom was colder than Claire had expected. Not by temperature, but by atmosphere. People sat in stiff rows, coats draped over knees, eyes locked on the drama unfolding a few feet away. Above them, stained glass windows filtered winter sunlight into fractured rainbows that scattered across the floor. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table, posture straight, palms flat against the polished wood. She didn't fidget. She didn't shift in her chair. Her face was calm, unreadable. Years of swallowing emotion had taught her that silence could be sharper than speech. Next to her, Nina Caldwell sorted papers with surgeon-like precision. Calm, clean movements. On the other side of the courtroom, Alyssa sat between Marjorie and Gregory, her legs crossed at the ankle, face powdered and prepared. Claire saw the subtle tapping of Alyssa's foot under the table. Marjorie looked bored. Gregory whispered something to his lawyer and smirked. The gallery behind them was packed. Press extended family. Strangers drawn in by the promise of scandal. And in the back row, Janet and Ethan sat shoulder to shoulder, anchoring Claire without saying a word. The judge cleared his throat. Proceed. Nina stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff presents into evidence a series of receipts from Walden Pharmacy, dated April through July of last year. She held up a packet. These receipts include prescriptions for medications known to induce complications in early pregnancy, purchased under Marjorie Whitmore's account. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nina laid the foundation brick by brick. Phone logs, text messages, one disturbing voicemail. And finally, she said, turning slightly toward the jury, an audio recording submitted by Mr. Ryan Carter, husband of the defendant Alyssa Whitmore. She pressed play. Alyssa's voice spilled into the room like poison. If she loses the baby, we can control the inheritance again. Silence. Claire didn't flinch. Not this time. The judge gave a slow nod. Call your first witness. Ryan stepped forward. He looked thinner, tired, but his voice was clear. My wife changed the day Claire announced her pregnancy. He began. She stopped sleeping next to me, spent long nights on the phone with Marjorie, started ordering herbal mixes she wouldn't drink in front of anyone. He paused, glancing at Alyssa, then back at the jury. She used to love Claire, or at least I thought she did. But suddenly she hated her. Talked about how unfair it was, about how Claire always took things first. Nina let him sit. Then she looked at Claire. Miss Whitmore, please take the stand. Claire walked slowly, her arm no longer in a sling, but still aching in the cold. She swore in, sat down, and met each juror's eye in turn. I'm not here for sympathy, she began. I'm here for truth. Her voice didn't tremble. She told them about the baby, the comments, the tea, the night of the shower, the words Alyssa used, her mother's hand on her arm, the push, and the floor. They've said I overreact, that I always make things dramatic, that I'm too emotional. She looked straight at her mother now. But I didn't fall because of my feelings. I fell because someone put their hands on me. Marjorie's jaw clenched. Claire turned to the jury again. I lost my child. I nearly lost my life. And they called it a joke. She stepped down in silence. Nina spoke briefly. The defense stumbled. The judge called for closing arguments. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours. When they returned, the forewoman rose. On the charges of endangerment and attempted bodily harm, we find the defendants guilty. Alyssa gasped, then crumpled, sobbing. It was just a joke, she cried as the bailiff moved toward her. Marjorie stood, trembling. You'll never have this family. She spat at Claire. Claire didn't blink. Her voice cut clean and final. I never wanted yours. I'm building my own. They tried to define me by blood. I rewrote the definition. Morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows, casting golden stripes across the table and floor. The hydrangeas Claire had planted 2 springs ago were in bloom again. Thick, full, unapologetically alive. She sipped her tea slowly, feeling its warmth settle into the spaces that once only held ache. The old nursery sketches were spread across the dining table. Crisp lines, gentle curves, rooms drawn with pastel walls and hand-carved details. She had drawn them once as blueprints for a child that never arrived, for a future that had been taken. Now, they were something else. From the hallway, Ethan appeared barefoot, hair still tousled from sleep. You're up early, he said, rubbing his eyes. I couldn't sleep. He joined her at the table, glancing over the drawings. You've been looking at these a lot lately. Claire nodded. I've been thinking. He waited. I want to try again, she said softly. But not the way they wanted. Not through legacy or obligation. Just on our own terms. Ethan reached for her hand and squeezed. Whatever that looks like. I'm with you. Later that afternoon, Janet arrived, the front door creaking open on its well-oiled hinges. She stepped inside like she had always belonged there, arms full of lemon scones, face bright with something else beneath her usual calm. There's someone I'd like you to meet, she said. Behind her, a girl stepped into view, about 12, thin, with messy hair and eyes too old for her age. She clutched the strap of her backpack like it anchored her to the floor. This is Sophia Grant, Janet said gently. Her mother was a friend of mine. She passed last month. No other family, just space that needs filling. Claire crouched slightly to meet Sophia's gaze. Hi, Sophia. I'm Claire. This is Ethan. Sophia stared, silent, wary. Janet rested a hand on the girl's shoulder. You don't have to say anything, sweetheart. Just see how it feels. Sophia looked around the room. The sunlight, the quiet, the soft edges and worn warmth of the home. "You're not like the others," she said at last. Claire blinked. "Number, I guess I'm not." They shared a silence that felt whole. Then Claire stood and offered her hand. Sophia didn't take it. Not right away. But she stepped forward. That was enough. That evening, as the house settled into stillness, Claire sat in her studio. A new page lay open on her sketchpad. She drew slowly, letting her hand move without hesitation. A crib, a bookshelf, a window with lace curtains. In the corner of the page, she wrote the title, Nursery for Sophia, and beneath it, Start Date, Today. The courtroom echoes had long faded, but the weight of truth remained. Claire had not just survived her fall. She had risen from it, armed with silence sharpened into strength and a heart no longer bound by bloodlines. Justice, once distant and uncertain, had arrived with the weight of every truth silenced too long. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. And sometimes building your own family means learning how to draw the first brick from the ruins. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And join me next time as we turn silence into strength, one truth at a time.